Right. So please be advised that the sessions are also recorded. And one of the questions we have gotten, are there any prerequisites to the course? Essentially basic mathematics. So not any fancy maths, just very basic, because there are a couple of formulae and calculations in the course, but very, very basic. Also, note that we will be taking questions either in the chat or the Q&A. We may not be able to get to all of them. Those that we are able to answer live, that's fine. However, the sessions subsequent, we will simply tackle all of the other questions that we have missed during the live session. We'll do our best to answer. If it is that I do not know the answer to your question, we actually do have a number of already licensed amateur radio operators in the course, and we will be reaching out to them for assistance should, in case any of the participants ask us difficult questions. Also note that your instructor is just a guide, and you as the participants will have to do all of the work. But we do ask, and we're hoping that everyone has a lot of fun in this course. So a little bit about the course itself. So what this course, this tuition does is intended to prepare participants to become licensed amateur radio operators. So we know that the exams and the licensing itself are completely separate from the course. So these sessions are really just the tuition. We also need to point out that this course has nothing to do with becoming a radio broadcaster or a DJ or a newscaster or weather anchor. It is not about a course in mass communication or announcing. Sometimes when these courses are advertised, someone may get the interpreted, or they may interpret it to be broadcasting, so it is not. And as we go on to explain about amateur radio or ham radio, we will see what it is about, if it is that we are not already aware. Of course, if you came into the course expecting a broadcaster's course, you do not have to leave. You're certainly welcome, because it may still be relevant to you. The information that we shared during the course itself and the knowledge that you obtain is applicable not only to amateur radio itself, but any use of two-way radio. It can be very helpful as well. Also, persons who attend the course, we will issue an electronic certificate of participation. It will be made available to attendees who at least attain 75% of the sessions. Just to note, exams, of course, are associated with becoming a licensed amateur radio operator. And that is simply to ensure that as radio operators, we are responsible. We take care of the safety aspect of it. It's important that we do not cause harmful interference, because that could happen using radio transmitting equipment. And of course, it is important that as we become proficient radio operators, we sit the exams, that we can also demonstrate proper radio operating practices when we get on the air. So all of those things are important. And just like, I guess, those of us who may have a driver's license, once you obtain your license, we have just begun to learn. So it's really a start and not an end. Once you have received that license, there's just so much more to learn. Again, similar to driving. You're on the road, you have a license to be on the road, but we now get the experience. So it's very similar. And amateur radio or ham radio is very wide-ranging. As a matter of fact, it is often said that the amateur radio license is a license to experiment. And when you study the radio techniques associated and the regulations, it's really about trying to help us not shoot ourselves in the foot, so to speak. All right, so just a quick slide about your facilitator. Let me introduce myself. My name is Ravindranath Goswami. Almost everyone calls me Robbie, and please feel free to call me Robbie. That's fine. My location is in Trinidad and Tobago, and on your screen is my email address. You can use that email should you wish to correspond, especially if you have any questions, apart from what will be asked live as well as in the Q&A. And my WhatsApp number, which you can also ask questions, is on the screen as well. I do belong to a couple of radio organizations. One of them, of course, being REACT, Radio Emergency Associated Communications Team, and we'll talk a little bit about REACT in a bit. I also belong to TTARS, that's the Trinidad and Tobago Amateur Radio Society, the ARRL, which is the American Radio Relay League, RSGB, which is the Radio Society of Great Britain, and of course, AMSAT, which is the Amateur Satellite Corporation. So those are some of the radio organizations that I belong to, and as you become licensed hams, you may want to join one or more of those organizations as well. My amateur radio call signs are for Trinidad and Tobago 9Y4R, or using the phonetic alphabet as we often do in radio speak, 9 Yankee 4 Romeo, and my US call is NZ4RG, November Zulu 4 Romeo Golf. And I'm also an ARRL instructor. Okay, so did promise you a couple of slides about REACT. So REACT is an organization. It's the word REACT is an acronym, and it, as mentioned before, it's Radio Emergency Associated Communications Teams. So it gives a little bit of an idea what the organization is about. But we're essentially about providing public service communications. And we provide assistance, especially in times of emergencies and disasters. And of course, as an organization, we have trained volunteer radio communicators. And the objective is to get the message through by any and every legal means necessary or available. And the motto for the organization is public service through communications. In terms of the organization itself, REACT, the structure, we have a parent body. It's called REACT International Incorporated, and the organization is located in Glendale, California. So that's our HQ. REACT itself was founded in 1962 and celebrated the 60th anniversary just last year in 2022. So the organization has been around for a while. And there's a board of directors, and there are several regions. So for participants in Trinidad and Tobago, you are in region 9. So there are 9 regions in REACT International. Of course, in terms of structure, there's a structure known as the council that teams belong to. And in Trinidad and Tobago, the first team was established in 1964. So again, been around for quite some time in TNT. And of course, the membership, which is called the Real REACT, we have both adult and youth membership called Junior REACT. So persons who are interested in joining REACT can always get in touch with us, and we will provide you information as to the contacts to the various teams. If you are participating and you're in a country or territory that does not have a REACT team and you would be interested in forming a team, we can discuss how to go about doing that, applying for a charter and starting a team. So please feel free to also contact us for further information. In terms of what REACT does, so we talked about public service communications. So we utilize radio, usually two-way radio. And of course, we have a little kitchen soup there about letters LMR, FRS, GMR, CB radio, amateur, and so on. So that's just really some of the technologies. And some of it will become clearer during the course itself as to what those terms may mean. We, of course, assist with local events of different types, cultural events, sporting events. So we will do swimming, road races, cycling. So you will see REACT members with their radios and reflective vests assisting, providing communications. Of course, national events in Trinidad and Tobago, one of the larger ones, Carnival. You would see REACT members involved in TNT Carnival. And of course, so many other events. key aspect of the organization is emergency communications, or what we refer to as MCOMs. We work very much along with first responder agencies and other partner agencies. In terms of first responders, when there's a disaster, we work very closely with those other agencies, the first responders, and we assist with providing communications. We also have memorandum of understanding with several other organizations internationally on your screen. We have a couple of those organizations that React International has MOUs with. And I can add that in Trinidad and Tobago, we also have an MOU with the Amateur Society, TTARS. So lots of linkages with organizations that respond in emergencies and disasters. Okay, so a question we often get is, how can you interact with us as an organization? So we just briefly introduced an app. If you want to get in touch with React and see what we do or hear how we carry on, or how we conduct networks, or how we are on the radio, there's an app called Zello. Most of the React channels that we use are closed channels. They're not open to the public. But Zello, it's a free walkie-talkie app that installs on just about any smartphone. It does require internet, of course. But you get it, install it, create an account for yourself. You can join a channel that's called React Members. It's an open channel. All communicators are welcome. And the app itself, there's no license required. You simply install and add the channel that is mentioned on your screen, React Members. Of course, because it's associated with React, we follow, as far as possible, standard radio operating practice. And some of that will become a little clearer as we go through the course, what that means. Of course, all are welcome to participate on the channel. And we have what are called networks every Saturday evening and Monday evening at 9 p.m. We also get involved in some training, especially on the TechNets on a Monday. So just a little bit about if you want to get in touch with React and communicate with us. That's one way you can immediately do so on any device. Of course, that's just a little snippet. Some persons may be interested in more information, so we just have a couple of URLs. You do not need to write them down. You will get the slides, but also feel free to note them if you wish. Those are a couple of the links or the URLs that you can get more information about React. So I think that's about it. So between now and the rest of the course, I don't think we'll be providing any additional information about React. So feel free to ask if there are any queries, questions about the organization. The rest of the course will be focused in on amateur radio material and becoming prepared to take the associated exams and become a licensed radio amateur. So exactly what is amateur radio? So at the start, we said this is not about broadcast radio or professional radio. And sometimes persons say amateur radio, so then persons are not really well developed in it. Well, amateur is just as opposed to professional radio, such as broadcast radio. But you will find in amateur radio, it's very serious, and that you can get quite serious and become highly specialized and professional in the sense of studying and engaging in communication in a way that is very professional. But we distinguish between amateur radio and professional radio in the sense that professional radio will be broadcast radio. So amateur radio will be what we are going to be talking about. It's also sometimes referred to as ham radio. And you have a definition on your screen. It's taken from the ARRL, and it talks about amateur radio being a hobby and also a service. It talks about us using communications, electronics, and of course, we are the users of those systems, and we use it to talk all over the world, and even using International Space Station as a relay to communicate. More about that during the course of time as we go through the course. You might be wondering, really use the ISS, International Space Station? Yes, that's something hams do on a daily basis with very little equipment is necessary to start. And of course, in amateur radio, we are talking about these sessions. You might have seen the technician class and you're wondering, well, what that is about. So we have a couple of slides that discusses what the technician class is about, but just know for the rubric that we are following, which is the American system, the FCC, there are 3 classes of licenses there: the technician, general, and extra. We will have a slide about what pertains in Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, we have participants from all over the world. We expect that you would look into what are the classes available in your jurisdiction. And of course, feel free to let us know as well what those are. Of course, we are in April, and the 18th, Tuesday, the 18th of April is what is called World Amateur Radio Day. So we are actually starting this course, a very auspicious occasion, as we can say, it's World Amateur Radio Day on the 18th. And we have a slide in a moment that talks about an event that is happening to celebrate or recognize World Amateur Radio Day. In Trinidad and Tobago, a special call sign has been issued, 9Y4WARD, a pretty long call sign. And there's a URL on your screen. If you would like to find out more about that, you can utilize that URL. We wouldn't go much into it, but it's a special event to mark World Amateur Radio Day as established by the International Amateur Radio Union. And there's some very nice graphics done up by it. Good friend Mark, 9Z4Y. So please check it out. It started today and goes until the actual day of World Amateur Radio Day, the 18th. So 14th to the 18th is the on-air activity celebrating World Amateur Radio Day. All right, so we will be taking a break in a couple of minutes, a 2-minute break, about the halfway point, to just give persons a chance to take a breather, and we'll come back. So let's do a couple more slides before the break. So this is another slide just to give a little bit more information about amateur radio. And of course, we talk about the amateur satellite service as well. And these definitions are taken from the FCC's website as to a little bit more about the amateur radio service. Talks about needing to be qualified. That simply means you need to sit an exam, get a result, pass, and then you are licensed. So you need to be qualified. Of course, we must be interested in something. And what is that something? It's radio technique. But it must also be, and this is a differentiating factor, for personal aim and without pecuniary interest. That's the difference between amateur radio and broadcast radio, professional radio. Hopefully, the picture is starting to become a little clearer. Of course, as an amateur radio operator, you get access to a lot of spectrum, or what we call frequency bands. That is one of the advantages as a ham. You get access. On the right-hand side, we have a couple of graphics that attempt to show what the entire spectrum looks like and the parts that amateur radio operators have access to. So these are very tiny graphics. As we go through the course, we will have exploded versions of these so we can read what they say. But this is just to give an idea. Total spectrum and pieces that amateur radio operators have access to. Must be noted, however, that as an amateur radio licensee, the frequencies assigned are not yours for your personal use. It's a shared spectrum. So just bear that in mind. Just like the roadway that we drive on, it's shared. We may have a license, yes, but we do not own the road. Although some of us might drive as though we own the road. But in terms of amateur radio, we need to be considerate and bear in mind it's shared. The frequencies that are given under the license class that you get will be shared. So hopefully that is painting a better picture, a little bit more about what amateur radio is about. You need a license. You need to sit an exam. You need to apply to a regulatory authority to receive that license. We also like to talk about amateur radio, not just being an endeavor that we follow, become licensed, and then, okay, it's cool to have a license. There's a bit of giving back that you can do as well. We advocate that hams, amateur radio operators, especially those that are in this class, we hope that when we produce qualified and licensed amateur radio operators, that each and every one of us, we strive to be good examples in not only radio technique, but also to be responsible in our attitude. So we must represent quite well. That is important. It's not just about getting a license. Just like driving, you can get a driver's permit or driver's license and you're on the road. But we need to be responsible. We need to be considerate and we need to act accordingly. Similarly, I'm expecting that everyone in this course, as you become licensed, you will represent very well in terms of your operating practices and how you carry yourself about. There's an opportunity to give back and get involved in voluntary work. So that's why, Albert, earlier we talked about REACT. That's what REACT is about, voluntary work, giving back to the community. Emergency communications, sometimes abbreviated EMCOMS, assists served agencies, both local, national, and in some cases international. That's one way that HAMS can communicate. Sorry, I say again, HAMS can contribute. After becoming licensed, you can give back by volunteering, working along with agencies, working along with organizations, in disaster and emergency communications. So you might have heard that whenever there's a hurricane or tornado or any sort of natural disaster, earthquake, ham radio operators are important. Why? Because when all else fails, amateur radio shines. It's very much, in fact, helpful whenever the traditional communications means go down. That is what emergency communications is about. And you'll find out why that is so as we go along in the course, how important ham radio is for emergency and disaster response. Of course, there are organizations that specialize in just that. So a couple of acronyms there: ARES, RACES, CERT, REACT, Saturn. Those are some of the names. There are many more. And those are some of the avenues. If you wish to give back, contribute, persons of a similar ilk, you can join those organizations. And those are avenues for you as a radio operator to give service to your country. All right. Probably just one more slide. Let's just cover this slide and then we will take a 2-minute break. So we talked a bit about the classes of licenses in the sense that we said that there's the technician, the general, and the extra. So those are the 3 classes. We, in this course, are focused in on the technician class, also called Element 2. That's the name of the exam. And we just want to give a little idea about that exam itself and what happens when you pass that exam. So in a little while, we come to talking about the question pool, the syllabus itself that we're studying towards. That syllabus contains approximately 400 questions in what is known as a question pool. It's actually about 412, but we're approximating. And in the exam, you get 35 questions to do in the exam out of that pool of 400. When you do that and you pass the exam, of course, to pass, you need a 75% pass mark. That's approximately 26 questions, I think it is. You need to get 26 right out of the 35 to pass the exam. And once you do that, you're now eligible for the technician class license in the US via the FCC. In Trinidad and Tobago, via the Telecommunications Authority, that's TAT, you're eligible for a basic class of license. And the call sign that you will get will have a prefix of 9Z3, 903. Of course, there are the 2 other levels in the rubric that we are following, which is the general class, also known as Element 3. And that general class has a question pool. That syllabus has 500 questions, of which you will get 35 of those. And with that, you will get a general class license in the US. And in Trinidad and Tobago, once you again apply to the Telecom Authority, you will be entitled to an advanced class license. And the prefix will be either 9Z4 or 9Y4. There used to be something called a general license, and that is being deprecated. So 2 license classes in Trinidad and Tobago. But there's a 3rd level, especially for those of us who, like to go all the way, might as well get to the top of the qualification. There's the amateur extra, or simply abbreviated extra class, also known as Element 4. That's the exam name. That has a question pool of 700 questions, approximately, and you get 50 questions to answer. Of course, you might have detected an increasing number of questions. Of course, the level of challenge is higher as you go from technician to general to extra. Of course, as mentioned, you will get the amateur extra class license in the US. In Trinidad and Tobago, there's no higher license than the advanced class. So once you have done the general, you get the advanced right away. If you do the extra, good, great to have. If highly encouraged to go for it, but there's no additional licensing in Trinidad and Tobago. You already have all of the privileges under the general, under the advanced class in Trinidad and Tobago. So the time is now about 5 minutes after 9. We want to just take a 2-minute break, and then we'll come back with the rest of our slides. So please get up, take a little stretch, have a little water, bathroom break, and we'll be back very quickly in about 2 minutes or so. Okay, so let's look to come back and resume. And while persons are coming back in, let's tackle some of the questions that have been asked in the Q&A. So first one is, will we be getting these slides? Yes, all slides presented will be circulated. So in the email that you will get that has the new Zoom link, each session will have a new Zoom link. you will be getting the slides attached. Next question. Okay, thank you very much. Noted. Mark and Linda, right. So your note is you're duly noted. Right. Great. Great to have you in the class. Right. So Nicholas, what we will do, we can communicate separately and we'll provide that information to you about joining the organization. Right. So feel free to send me a WhatsApp or an email, or I will reach out to you. So Junior is asking about the police having access to these channels in an emergency. Well, in an emergency, yes. Of course, there are protocols to follow and there are emergency protocols. So whether the access is direct access or other forms of access, the short answer will be yes. It could involve multi-agency coordination or unified command. And the simple answer is yes. Access, yes. That's the short answer. There's a longer answer, right? So Norman, so the advanced class, yes, in terms of your privileges, about the same. Now, of course, privileges in the US and Trinidad and Tobago are not equivalent. They're not exactly the same. But what we can say, maybe as a summary, is that the advanced class in Trinidad and Tobago has the maximum privileges that Trinidad and Tobago licensees have, and the extra class have the maximum number of privileges in the United States, right? But they're not technically exactly the same. There's some little differences, as it were. But yes, they are the top qualification, if you want to call it there, maximum access to the frequencies that are allowed in each jurisdiction. Yes. All right. So Anissa, sure. We'll send the link. Also, we'll attempt to put it inside of the email that we'll send off as well with the slide deck. All right. So thanks for your interest there. All right. So we do have a slide, Sheldon, coming up in a little bit in terms of the cost to for the exams and the cost for the licenses, right? So if you could hang just a little bit. Yeah. Jobs, well, Suzanne, yes, there are some jobs that indicate on their specification that an amateur radio license is an asset. I'm not sure if it is still there, but I remember when in Trinidad and Tobago, the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development would send out ads for communications technician. I recall seeing inside of there one of the qualifications saying something to the effect that an amateur radio license is an asset. So my short answer to that question is yes, I believe so. Having it can provide that additional asset. Yeah. All right. So short answer, yes. Okay, Gideon, yes. So the intention is once we have completed the technician class tuition, we will be running in a few weeks' time afterwards. We will do the general class because we actually did the general class about 3 years ago, but that question pool is actually expiring in June of this year. So we will be running the general, and also once we have completed the general, we will be doing the extra class for those who are interested. So we intend to do them in a way back to back, but probably a break of 2 weeks. All right, so I'll just stop there with the Q&A for the time being because we have to get on with class, the other slides, and we actually were just about halfway there. So I may need to impinge on you for extra 5 or 10 minutes. So I hope that's not an issue for the participants. I do apologize in advance. So let's see if we could run a little bit faster through this information. All right, from your questions, it sounds as though what we have presented so far is of interest, right? So let's continue. All right, so let's talk about the learning objectives. In a broad way, we are looking at developing knowledge and understanding in relation to amateur radio First up, safety, and you'll see big and bold there, safety first. Remember you mentioned a lot of this is about learning how not to shoot ourselves in the foot, so to speak, right? So safety first, because with radio transmitting equipment, there can be dangers. So we need to observe safety first. We'll talk quite a lot about regulations, that's important, radio operating practices, and of course, the more technical aspects of the course, which will be electrical and electronics theory. So at the technician level, it will not be very difficult theory, and we'll try to make it as gentle as possible in terms of the concepts, right? So it's very much within our grasp. That's the general high-level learning objectives. Let's talk now a bit about the actual curriculum that we'll be following. All right, so this slide will be a feature of every session. We will show what we are trying to achieve and where we are in the list of topics. So as you see on your screen, we are here. We are now starting. Today is essentially the orientation. We're talking about what amateur radio is about a bit. But in terms of the actual topics for the exam, we will have electrical principles, electronic components and circuits. We'll discuss radio wave characteristics. We'll talk about antennas and feed lines. We'll also discuss amateur radio signals. Very important, amateur radio station safety. Also setting up our station and operating controls, station equipment, operating procedures, rules and regulations. And of course, we will be tackling these topics in this order. This arrow will progressively move towards the end as we complete these sections. So we'll always have a pretty good idea where we are in terms of our overall objective as it relates to our curriculum. So just quickly about our session, right? So today is essentially an orientation. No sort of teaching in the sense of the content, other than we'll probably quickly look at some of the material just to give an idea what is to come. But today is an orientation. We are expecting approximately 16 sessions. It depends on how quickly or how slowly we go, but we'll aim for about 16. So that's a sort of moderate pace, I think. We will be doing 1 day per session, and it will typically be on Fridays at 8:30 p.m. We expect each session to be, give or take, about 1 hour. We will do a 2-minute break about halftime, just to give us a little break from, especially when we get into the theory. Our approach is very much light touch theory. So we're not necessarily going in depth into the theory, just sufficient for us to understand. So light touch on the theory. Of course, we'll be using slide decks throughout so that the theory will be on the slides, and we'll be exam focused. Why? Because our main goal here is to pass the exam. And just to say, we will be tackling every single question in the question pool. So for the technician class, we talked about 412 questions. Over the 16 sessions, we will be dealing with every single question. Of course, while we're doing that, we will not have the luxury to deal with the distractors or the wrong answers. We'll be laser focused on the right answer and why the right answer is the correct answer. Of course, when there are questions in the session, we will attempt to answer those questions at the start of the next session. Of course, we will be making every attempt to have the recordings available so that persons who, for whatever reason, cannot attend on a Friday evening or miss a session due to other priorities can review. So best effort, cannot promise, right? Actually, this evening session, we have a challenge already. But nonetheless, we will be making every effort to have the sessions recorded and made available within a day or so of our session. It also is good for us to review as well. That's one of the techniques in terms of retention, reviewing within a few hours the material covered. All right, so let's get a bit into the course material. So there are 4 documents that we will be circulating within the next 24 hours or so to all participants. And those are 4 PDF files. One will be the text that we'll be using. So the Scholarly Known and Sense Guide. That will be our main text. Just find it to be very efficient in terms of the classes. However, we will also be circulating the question pool that we've been talking about, more about the question pool a little bit. We will also be circulating what is called part 97 of the amateur radio service rules, because many of the regulation questions are drawn from this. So while you'll be learning the question pool, you will have at your fingertips the full part 97. And it's highly encouraged that at least you look it over so you can see in the questions where these things are coming from. These are the regulations. And of course, there's another really cool text. It's called a syllabus, especially for persons who like to read ahead. There are a few persons who have asked us for supplemental material. What can I do to read in between classes or read ahead? We'll be providing at least these to each person so that you all can certainly engage with the material. Of course, you will receive the slide deck also. So to undertake this course, there's no need to purchase any material whatsoever. No, you do not have to purchase any books. Having said that, however, we highly recommend that you consider purchasing at least one of the texts. The text that we'll be using, it was written by someone. They have spent a lot of time and effort to put together that book. And so if you can, we recommend supporting the person by making a purchase of their book. It's not required, however. If you can, please consider supporting. But there are several other good texts. So we have the one that we'll be using, the No Nonsense Guide by Dan. We also have Gordon West's books, very good books. And of course, we have the ARL text. So they're listed here on your screen. They're all available on Amazon. Feel free. There are many others. You can also search online. There are many free resources online. You can just search amateur radio technician class, and you'll get a ton of videos and books as well. However, we just listed a couple so that you don't have to go searching all over. These are pretty good texts and highly recommended as well. Again, optional, but highly recommended. All right, so a bit about the exams. So they're all multiple choice exams, questions, they're A, B, C, D. And the question pool, that question pool, will come up in a while what it looks like. It's all unseen, no unseen questions. So every question and all of the answers will be known to you. In the technician level, there are 412 of them. Note that the question pool has an expiration of 4 years. So we are currently doing the 2022 to 2026 syllabus. So it will be valid until 2026, about mid-2026. So you have quite some time to take the exam after you study, but we highly recommend take it not too long after, so as everything is fresh. Some persons are not able to, so don't have to worry too much. You can take it later on. Question pool is valid for 4 years. Of course, we are at the technician level. It's a progressive series of qualifications. You go from the technician to the general to the extra class. We are doing the technician class course, followed by the general that we will do, and then the extra. When it comes to doing the exam itself, you can take all 3 exams if you wish in one sitting. You can take 2. It is really progressive, so persons will probably take the technician. Some people will take the technician and general, and some will actually go all the way and do technician, general, and an extra class in one setting. And as we will talk about in a little bit, that is at the same cost. You can actually go and sit all 3 exams, or one, for the same cost, right? So quite efficient once you can manage it. Once you do the exam, you will be issued a certificate that looks like this on your right-hand side. It's called the CSCE, Certificate of Successful Completion of Examination. Now, the exams are conducted by volunteer examiners. So those are the persons, so that's why we would have said up front, we are just doing the tuition here. The volunteer examiners, that's separate. They're the ones that conduct the exams, and you can have in-person exams as well as remotely proctored exams. So for persons in Trinidad and Tobago, those exams are held at the Telecom Authority. The cost is approximately 15 US, and you pay that to the volunteer examiners. To get the US license, there's now a filing fee. It used to be free, but it's now 35 US, but that's good for 10 years. So just note a new filing fee. So the technician class, it's called Element 2. There are 35 questions that you have to do in the exam from the pool of 412 possible questions. You must get at least 26 correct, which is a pass mark of 75%. Again, it's very doable because there are no unseen questions. All the questions are known. For the exam, you have to work with a pencil and calculator. We'll go over this in the last session to recap, but persons often like to find out what to expect, so we're covering this in the orientation. Please study for the exam. Don't take it for granted. We have highly qualified persons in the court and say, well, all right, I know all of this material already. Let me just go and sit the exam. Because there are content around regulations and safety, some of the answers may not be quite obvious, even though you may have prior knowledge. So please do study for the exam. And from the V's and talking with the team, they have said that once we have completed this course for persons in Trinidad and Tobago, they will consider scheduling an in-person exam, right? So it depends on the interest. So that sounds like a good incentive, right? Of course, you can always do remote exams. Those were very popular during the highly restrictive COVID-19 pandemic period. They are still available, and you can do those remote exams online. So you don't necessarily have to wait for the in-person exam, but consider supporting the V's as well at the in-person exams. One of the ways we recommend for exam prep is to consider doing practice exams. That will tell you whether you're ready, and we'll provide the links in a little bit as to all now, so you can start taking practice exams. See where you are at. So how do I go about getting an amateur radio license? At a high level, we would study the syllabus. We will then take some practice exams to see if we are ready. Then we take a scheduled exam, and we also have to, because we are doing the American exams, we have to register on the Federal Communications Commission's, the FCC's website. The link is there for you. You need to register there to get an FRN. That's important. Then you sit the exam. That FRN number that you get when you register on the FCC website, you have to provide that once you're registering for the exam and sitting the exam. Once you pass, that's what the volunteer examiners will use to register you. Then you'll get an email about paying your $35. You need to have a valid address in the United States. So for US participants, that's natural. For persons in Trinidad and Tobago and any other territory, you need to have a US address. It could be a friend, a family member, and it could even be one of those freight forwarding type courier companies, also known as a skybox. That address will work just fine. You just need to have a valid postal address. That's important. It's necessary. You will get the CSC as mentioned once you pass the exam. Then you will obtain your FCC license for a period of 10 years. Of course, there's a new fee of $35. So when you renew in 10 years' time, maybe it'll still be $35. It used to be free before. It just takes a couple of weeks. Once you've passed the exam and submitted, the V's will take care of it for you, and then you pay your license fee, and you will get the license online. In Trinidad and Tobago, you would need to take that CSCE certificate to the Telecom Authority. You will also get a 10-year license. There's a $20 TT application fee and a $100 TT per year license fee. So you can pay that you can pay that per year, or you could pay it upfront if you wish. That license will take about 3 months or so between when you apply to it and when it's issued, give or take. So of course, we are unable to provide details for other countries, but of course, participants from other countries, as you find out, please do let us know, and we'll share it with participants. What's the process for licensing in your territory? All right, let's continue. Okay, that's a slide I should have taken out. Okay, so the question pool that we have been talking about. So we'll show up the question pool in a little bit, but let's just zoom on into one of the questions in this question pool. When you see a question in the question pool, there are some seemingly cryptic numbers and letters on it, and that's what this slide is intended to help us decode. At the top of each question, you'll have a number. It's the question number, T1A07. That's the question number. The letter that follows in brackets afterwards or in parentheses is the correct answer. So C in this case, you know, if in doubt, choose C, right? So C in this case. And the next cryptic set of letters and numbers will be the FCC's Part 97 section, if applicable. So not all questions will have this, but if you ever see this, that means this question is about a section in the FCC Part 97 rules. And then we come to the question itself. So this question is, what is the FCC Part 97 definition of a space station? Well, we already know the correct answer is C, right? Because as we have learned, that's how we decode the question pool. C is the correct answer. Of course, the others are incorrect answers or distractors, right? So we're just begging an additional couple of minutes again. We're just about the 1 hour point. So just a couple of minutes for us to wrap up. So we did mention practice exams. This slide has many websites that you can use to generate a practice exam. It's highly recommended. You can even start all now. The first link is the one I recommend simply because it's really useful, very user-friendly. And if you wish, you can always share your progress with your instructor. Some persons like to share, some do not. That's fine. It's optional. But if you want to share your progress with me, please use that link at the top, and you can choose at that point to share your progress. That's fine. You might actually be quite surprised how many questions you can get correct without even studying the pool. Some of them are, let's use the word common sense, right? So consider taking them, get accustomed to them. We have several links to these sites simply because the sites come and go. So I cannot guarantee all of them will be available. So we have listed some of the better ones. Choose which one you like. Right, so we come to now the frequently asked questions. Is Morse code required? The answer is no. We have a longer explanation there. Feel free to read it at your leisure. Do you need to have any radio equipment to study for an amateur radio license? No, you do not need any equipment whatsoever. Are you obligated to take exams after doing the course? No, you are not. However, it's entirely up to you. But we do hope you will consider taking the exam and becoming a licensed radio amateur. Next question. Well, I do not really like exams. You know, what do I do? Well, question pool, the fact that all of the questions are seen, there are no unseen questions, the fact that you can generate practice exams, I think that is the secret. If you generate about 4 or 5 of these practice tests online and you pass all 4, all 5 comfortably, you know you're ready. So if some of us may be a little bit shaky in going to exam rooms, that's fine. You know, just breathe it up, sit the people exam, pass it, and become a licensed amateur. So very doable, and hopefully this course will be helpful towards gaining that confidence. We hope. Another popular question. I'm under 18. Can I sit the exam? Yes, yes, yes. Please, please, please do. Young persons are highly encouraged. There's no age limit. So please, yes, the adults in the course, please consider encouraging young persons in your family to consider becoming a licensed ham as well. No age limit. Youth highly encouraged. And what can you do with a ham radio license? The answer there, I'll read it out. It's an almost limitless number of things. An amateur radio license is a license to experiment with radio frequency spectrum and associated electronics and technologies. So if you're into that sort of thing, limitless opportunity. The operational procedures and practice will develop communication skills. Hams can contribute to disaster preparedness and response within communities and nations. As we go through the course, you will start to see some of those possibilities. And of course, very often asked question, is there a cost to this course? No, the tuition itself is free, but there's a cost to take the exams as mentioned, and also a cost to obtain and maintain one's license. All right, so we are coming to the end of the slides. Let's just do a quick dip into the study material. Okay, so on your screen, we have a couple of documents. The first one is the question pool. So you would have seen one of the questions excerpted in a slide a short while ago. But just to give you an idea, this is what the question pool looks like. You have all of the questions and the choices and what the correct answer is in parentheses at the top. So this is what the mysterious question pool is. That's why we say no unseen questions. So persons in Trinidad and Tobago who would have gotten a driver's license, you know, that little booklet that you study all of the questions, all of the answers, kind of like that. But there are 412 of them. Is it possible to memorize all the answers to all the questions? Yes, I guess. But what we encourage in this course is an understanding. So you don't have to really remember everything. There are some things you have to memorize. But once we understand the concept, the exams become that much easier. So just thumbing through, just to give an idea of what a question pool is. Question number, answer, the question, and the answers to choose from, including the correct answer and all the distractors. So this is the question pool. And this one is for the technician class. All of the questions are here. All right. The other bit of material we will be distributing in an email to all participants is the book that we'll be using. And this is the No Nonsense Guide. This is what it looks like. So you'll get it on an email. It has all of the questions and a little bit of an explanation as to why the answer is the correct answer. Right. But we will be focusing in our slides on the correct answer. We will not be worrying with the distractors. So in this text, the correct answer is in bold. So again, it's like an expanded question pool. The question pool with some theory and some answers. Of course, part 97, that's where you get the rules and the regulations from. So we'll be circulating it for your reading pleasure. So of course it reads like an act or legal document, or those who read laws, it looks like that. Sections, very useful to read. And the last document to just thumb through is this document. Is called a Technician License Syllabus. Very nice document. So persons who have asked for supplementary material that you can read, feel free to read this through. Very good text. Contains a lot of theory. And sometimes it's good to hear, well, not only from the instructor, but from different authors. Sometimes to concretize a concept, you need to hear it or read it from different authors' perspectives. They may use different diagrams as well and may concretize our knowledge. So those are 4 of the documents that we will be circulating to all participants. So back to our slide deck. All right, so what are our next steps? So session number 2 which will be held next week. We will be circulating the Zoom link to everyone via email. And might I mention, we did have a couple of issues with some of the participants where persons might have put in incorrect email addresses. Because we asked for phone numbers, we did try to contact everyone where the email was invalid. We were able to communicate with most, but not all. I do apologize for that. I hope those persons realize that they are not registered properly and will contact us. We also have another situation where some participants' mailbox become full and will not receive the email as well. So we're suggesting, see what you can. Maybe you can provide another email, an alternative email address. We will replace it and use that if that is more convenient to you. Or please do try and clear the mailbox so that you can receive the email. Up to you, really. But we will be circulating the link to the previous recording, as well as the slide deck, the new Zoom link, and some other relevant information. So, of course, the handouts that we showed a short while ago in PDF format. Again, feel free to read ahead, highly encouraged. Any questions that we did not answer or you did not get a chance to ask, rather, you can send via email to this email address on your screen. Please check your email regularly, at least once a week, because we will send at least one email to all participants at least once a week. So if you don't check email regularly, you will miss out on the link. Also, speaking of which, please check your spam emails. Sometimes the messages go into spam. We have really little or no control over that. So please check your spam. If you have not seen an email from us and you're saying, but wait a minute, how come a couple of days have passed? Please check your spam email folder. We're hoping that everyone stays the course and completes to the end and become interested in taking the exam and also becoming licensed, right? Of course, our next session will be held on Friday, the 21st of April. That's next Friday at the same time, 8:30 p.m. Let me see if there are any burning questions that we can answer before we look to wrap up. Right, so I see, so there are a couple of questions again about the general class and the extra. Yes, we will be doing classes afterwards. Let's see. Yeah, so this class here is the technician class, right? Just to be clear. So Christopher, what we are doing right now is the technician class. Afterwards, we'll be doing the general class and the extra class courses, right? And yes, Part 97 is an FCC document. Yes, Shakel, certificate of participation, an electronic certificate of participation at that will be issued to persons who request it at the end. So we have a little form that we will circulate that will ask you to type in the name as you want it printed. Why I say that, some persons, when they register, may register something other than the name that they would like on a certificate. At least we pick that up. So we will ask you, once you have completed, to fill out a form to get that certificate issued to you as you would like your name to appear. Yeah, so the time limit for the exams is when the exam, the question pool expires. So this question pool expires in 2026, but we wouldn't want to encourage you to wait until then to do the exam, right? So good question there, Norman. Right, so Mark, what we'll be attempting to do is send the link to you for the recording. So we'll send a URL to the recording once it sticks. So we had an issue a little earlier with the recording, so I'm just hoping that it is in fact successful. If not, I will humbly apologize. Today, fortunately, is the orientation, so we have not covered any real technical material. So we will need to try and make sure that from next week we record, right? So good question there, man. Right, so Angela, sure, I can show it, but in the interest of time, we will circulate the slide deck. I'll attend to that in the soonest. So if you wouldn't mind waiting for the slide deck, so you will see the optional materials, right? And I'm just doing that because we have gone a little bit over time, and in respect of person's time, we want to see if we can wrap up as quickly as possible. So just taking the Q&As. Yeah, so there is no age limit in Trinidad and Tobago. That is as a result of fairly recent developments within the last year or so, representation through the Telecom Authority. It was represented and accepted that persons under 18 can become licensed. Of course, there are provisions, but the simple answer is yes. So that's why we say no age limit. All right. Right, so an amateur radio license must not be used for commercial purposes, such as a security firm or business. Absolutely not. So that's why we say it's for personal interests and non-pecuniary interests, not amateur radio. Commercial radio licenses are for businesses. So I hope that answers the question there. It's SAWIC, SAWIC, okay? And Shania, yes, we will be providing the recording once it sticks. We'll endeavor our best. And Anissa, 16 sessions, yes, for the technician course. 16 sessions. Today is session number 1. All right, so I think that's it for the questions. Not seeing any more. So I'd like to thank everyone for your participation this evening. We had a really good attendance, and we would like to see you back next week. Then pay attention to your email, please. You will get further information. So thanks, everyone. Do have a good night. Be safe. Take good care.